Hello and welcome. Welcome to my channel, Jason Ankin Coaching. Um, just a few quick announcements. If you're watching this on my Facebook page, you will obviously have seen that I've changed my page name to Jason Ankin Coaching, and I've also changed the domain name to jasonankin.com. I just felt that it was a better name to do long term. It's really straightforward. It's my name, Jason Ankin, what I do, coaching. Ankin Performance Skills didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, so I decided to change the name, and that's all. The second announcement is that I'm going to start posting these videos on YouTube first, and I'm going to link them to my Facebook page. That's really it. So this is the second video. What this video is going to be about is just going to be a basic overview, another overview of what I call basically my study and training history, going all the way back to when I was a youngster. There's really three periods: when I was single digits, my teens, and my 20s. So going all the way back, when I look back at my life retrospectively, there were two things that were always very self-evident. The first one is I was very physical. I enjoyed doing lots of different types of sports. It was a very unspecific type of training. I would just do all different types of sports, team sports, playing games. I would be out on the streets with my mates. I could easily have spent 4 or 5 hours after school running about the park or running about the town, no problem. Also, the second thing that was very evident, that I had a very natural curiosity for science, in particular, natural world, specifically biology, and in and around that sort of subject. I was really fascinated with watching documentaries on sort of animals, in particular predatory animals, things like lions and tigers and stuff like that, and cheetahs. I just loved watching them, watching those types of documentaries, and it was really the only thing that could keep me still, to be honest. And that was more or less, it was, like I said, it's very unstructured, but I noticed even from a very young age I was interested in these physical training, and I was interested in sort of scientific stuff. There was one particular experience that I remember, and that was, there was a bookshelf at the top of my stairs in my house, and in that shelf there used to be a book on anatomy and physiology, and periodically I would flick through this book and just randomly read it. So from a very young age I was always aware of human physiology, and I think that then later manifested in my sort of interest in sports and exercise science and stuff like that. But yeah, as I started to get older, I started getting into my teens, and I started to understand my body a little bit more. One thing that was very self-evident is that I'm very tall. I'm 6'2". I'm also really lean, so I'm quite thin. I'm tall and skinny, basically. Now, this gave me an advantage actually in certain sports, in particular running and also martial arts. I started dabbling with karate when I was about 9-10 years old. I sort of tried boxing, and I always just noticed that I had a certain advantage because I was tall and I was light, so I was going up against opponents who were much smaller than me, and being very naturally athletic, I always remember that I was able to outperform adults, and I was only 9-10 years old, just being very athletic. I didn't really study too much. Obviously I was in school and stuff like that. That's a different story altogether. But later on, once I got into my later teens, after I left school actually, I joined to become a recruit in the British Army, and this really opened up my understanding and awareness of what the human body is capable of. This experience pretty much changed the direction of my life. I wasn't really that academic. It's an understatement to say that I wasn't really academic. I did really, really poorly in my GCSEs. But the experience in the military taught me that I could perform better. Because if you failed a test in the military, you got held back. So if you didn't want to get held back, you had to pass. So it stimulated motivation within me to start working harder and start performing better. And obviously in that environment, I'm comparing myself to adults. I was only 17, 18 years old. I was outperforming adults that were physically and mentally. And that was not something that I experienced before. But eventually I left the military and started going back to school. This is when I started to study sports and exercise science. And I actually passed that course completely. Now, that was a bit of a shock to me because prior to the military, I was very unacademic, and then after it, I easily passed the course. And I was always curious to know how that actually occurred. Yeah, but even around this time period, around 20 years old, this is when I started to sort of also get into traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu, and I also started to read books. I started reading world mythology, I started reading philosophy, I started reading psychology. I was really just curious about the subjects. I had no real particular reason why I was studying world mythology booklets. I was just fascinated by the stories, Greek, Roman, Norse, Egyptian. And to be honest, I've learned some of my best lessons from that type of material. It's it's actually amazing. It's probably some of the best literature on the planet, to be honest. But yeah, eventually I passed that course. I continued with my jiu-jitsu, continued with my reading. I actually became a qualified personal trainer. Around this time I started working as, I was working as a leisure attendant, like a lifeguard. And eventually that job transitioned into being a gym instructor. And that's the job that I'm currently working in now. But after I became a qualified sort of personal trainer, I wanted more. So I went back and I studied sports and exercise science, and I completed an HNC, a Higher National Certificate in Sports Science, which is sort of the equivalent to 1 year. And it is equivalent to 1 year. And during this period, this is when I started to understand about the mental side of things, mental performance as opposed to physical performance. Because I started studying this subject called sports and exercise psychology, and I realized that this was the stuff that was integrated into the military training. They taught you about confidence, they taught you about motivation, they taught you about goal setting, group dynamics, leadership, all that type of stuff is integrated into military training. And I realized that this is the information that ultimately made me make that shift from being someone who was an underachiever academically to someone who's been an achiever academically. And I passed that HNC with 8 distinctions out of 8. So the information I would use these performance psychology techniques and tools to get better grades. Also with my martial arts, when I took up jiu-jitsu, I actually accomplished a 2nd degree black belt, but I'm sort of making a transition to distance running at the minute. I think I've got a few more years, maybe 6 to 8 years of high performance in running, and I want to sort of take that opportunity to sort of focus more on running right now. So I'm hoping, so because I finished my HNC in sports science, I took a year out and I'm now waiting to get back in to complete the rest of my degree, which should be another 2 years. I'll finish off an HND and then I'll eventually do a top-up year. And that's really it. So once I became really interested in sort of the mental side of things, that's when I started to make the shift away from physical and more towards mental. And that's what this service and this is all about. So that's pretty much it. That's a half decent overview. We're getting a bit on with the time. So yeah, that's just another overview of a little bit about myself, a little bit about my study and training history. From now on, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start putting up more specific videos now. These last 2 videos were just an overview. Like I said, the videos are going to be on YouTube first, and then I will publish them to a Facebook page. So the videos will start to talk about principles, I'll start to talk about techniques, strategies and tools that I've picked up along the way. And I've got a good one lined up for you next week. It's a really, it's one that people always ask about and one that people always talk about, but no one really explains it clearly enough. And it's such a... I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to wait till you see it next week. But it's basic, but it's everything. It matters a lot. So I will see you next week. Thanks for watching. And yeah, bye.